All right, one more time. I just recorded the entire thing. I'm trying out a new microphone, found out the volume setting was wrong, tons of distortion due to clipping, gotta redo. Okay, so I'm trying something new here. These are all the Albion swords I currently have in my collection. They have all made an appearance in several videos, but I've never actually shown them all together side by side like this for visual comparison. So I figured that would be interesting to do, both for people who are new to the channel and also for those who like a shorter version of direct comparison. Like if you're thinking about getting one of these and you're trying to figure out which one, maybe this could help you a little bit. So I'll talk about each of them a little bit. I'm also going to leave the links to the previous videos about them down below in the video description, reviews, testing, etc. Okay, so let's get into it. So this one is, out of these, the first Albion sword I got. I owned two other ones before that, but I don't have those anymore. So we're older models. And this is the Caithness. It's a medieval Scottish arming sword. And it's got a very interesting hilt. Obviously the most eye-catching feature on this is the pommel. You know, how many other swords flip you the bird? This is just a very peculiar shape. You can see the clear Nordic influence here. Like this is usually on Viking style swords. You have these kinds of lobes here and a fairly wide pommel. So same kind of idea here. There was some contact and cultural exchange between Vikings and the Scots, so they probably picked that idea up from them. And it's also got this claymore style upswept guard here, which I personally find quite nice. Also with this little point here in the center, gives it quite a nice little accent, if you will. And as far as the handling is concerned, this is quite a light sword and it feels particularly light. So it weighs 1.15 kilograms or 2.5 pounds. And the balance, I'm just going to show you here without touching the blade so I don't have to re-oil it afterwards, because human skin doesn't agree a whole lot with steel, or rather vice versa. The steel doesn't appreciate contact with it and might rust. So balance is fairly close to the guard, as you can see, and that makes it really easy to handle. So in the hand, like I can swing it around with just the wrist just fine, and it's incredibly nimble and lively in the hand. The one thing that I found a little bit disappointing is the cutting performance. For one, the edge out of the box wasn't quite as sharp as I like. This was the dullest blade, or the least sharp. It was relatively semi-dull out of all of these. The other ones all came sharper, so I don't know if it was this particular one. Could be. Then I touched the edge up, resharpened it, and it still didn't perform quite as well in the cut as I had hoped. I mean, it's not a bad cutter, but not as good as it could be, I think. Now, that's partly due to the edge, but it's also, I think, the flexibility as well. Like I'm just going to show you here just how flexible it is. Like this is extreme flex. I mean, I can very easily bend it that far without a problem. So that's a bit much. I don't know if you can see this. If I make it vibrate, maybe you can see just how much it wobbles. It's a little much for my taste. Of course, different types of swords have different flexibility. It's all got pros and cons and whatnot. Still a very nice sword. It's a really pretty looking sword, to me at least. And yeah, again, handles beautifully. The handle is extremely nice. These are, like all of these have basically the same kind of handle wrap. It's all wrapped, wood core, then wrapped in leather. And it's, after it was glued, it was wrapped in string to compress it. And that's why it looks string wrapped, but it isn't. It's just the impression of the string. Also got a riser in the center here. The other two are made the same way. There are minor differences in shape. Like this one here has more of a belly here, a bit of a swell in the center. This one is slightly concave almost in its profile. That one is a little more similar to this, but obviously longer, has more risers. But overall they're fairly similar. They all feel great. I mean, this is definitely the best kind of grip that I've handled so far. Well, with one exception. The second one I got is the Knecht. This is a German sword or knife. They literally called it a war knife that was used in the late Middle Ages and Renaissance. This is one of the iconic weapons of the Landsknecht, hence the name that Albion chose. So this is pretty similar in handling to a longsword, comparable in weight and balance and all that. But the blade is wider than a lot of them, and it's got this extra addition here to the guard. This is called a nail, or Nagel in German, and that gives you a bit more, gives the hand more protection. And the hilt construction is different. So this one here is actually assembled with handle scales on either side, which are then riveted. You can see the rivets right there. Normally you would see the tang here in the center, but in this version here, the more recent one, Albion chose to make the handle scales flush in the center, so they fit together perfectly, which I very much appreciate. That means you don't have to keep re-oiling the tang, because your hands will be on there very often. So in this case, it's all encased and more protected. One thing I also particularly like about this handle here is the groove. You can see there in the center. So this makes quite a bit of a difference for how it feels. Probably more so than you might think. It may just look like an aesthetic thing, and it is an aesthetic feature to an extent, but it just, the way the hands wrap around here and the fingertips kind of rest in that groove feels really good. Now this is probably the most comfortable, this bare wood grip that I've handled so far. So just really nice. In terms of handling overall, it is, for the size, it is, again, surprisingly light. In fact, if I hold this right next to the long sword, what would you guess? Which one is heavier? My bet is a lot of you would probably say that this one is heavier, but in fact it's not. This is almost 300 grams lighter than the longsword. This one weighs 1.375 kilograms or 3 pounds. And that's quite manageable, especially with two hands. Then the balance, you can see right here, it's a bit more forward weighted than the one-handed swords, obviously. It's got a pretty thick spine near the guard, and then it tapers down towards the end. There's flexibility. It doesn't have as much flex as the others, although when struck it does vibrate quite a bit. And well, what else can I say? I've done a full review of this, which was excessively enthusiastic, I guess you might say, because if I was somehow forced to give up all my Albion swords except one, to cure cancer or for some magical shenanigans, then this one I would keep. I mean, I love the other ones, they're great, but if I had to pick just one, this is the most expensive one. This is just the best in terms of fit and finish and performance. It makes cutting pretty easy. The blade geometry is good. The edge that it came with was good, even though I sharpened it some more because it's just how I like it. And overall, yeah, well worth the money. It's a lot of money though. The next one is the Albion Berserkr. This was a gift from Kara. This is a Viking-era single-edged sword from Norway. These are not as common or iconic as double-edged swords, but there were a number found in Norway and maybe also other places. That's the only region that I'm aware of where these were found. But either way, this is almost, you can say, the sword version of a sax. So you can see here, relatively thick spine. And the pommel is interesting. If you look at it from the front, it just looks like, kind of a standard pommel. This is, fairly common shape on earlier Viking swords. But from the side, you see that there's a bit more. It's got this concave shape here, and really quite interesting. Now these are, these require a specific kind of grip. The Caithness, not so much. You can use it with a variety of different grips. It doesn't get as much in the way because, well, you can see it's just kind of widens towards the end, and it's not right there in your wrist the way that this is. So this can be used either with a hammer grip with kind of a shorter stroke like this, or it can be used in a handshake grip like that. Either way, it's reasonably comfortable. Not quite as comfortable as some later swords in my opinion, but I definitely like the style overall. Viking swords just have their own particular rugged aesthetic. There's something very pleasing about them. By the way, all of these have a distal taper, meaning that the blade is thicker near the guard and then thins out gradually towards the point. This is what gives them the balance, more so than the pommel. The pommel doesn't do as much for counterbalancing as people often seem to think, especially since many of the originals found a hollow. But either way, oh yeah, the flexibility, let me just show you real quick. This is strangely flexible for a sword like this. So you can see it flexes a lot. And that seems a little strange to me because the originals were iron blades. So a bit of an oddity in a way, not quite that representative maybe, but it's of course useful for preventing the blade from permanently bending or breaking. And it performs really well. I've done some abusive testing with it, took it no problem, cuts extremely well. I mean, wide blades like this tend to. You can really throw quite a powerful cut with this. It weighs 1.16 kilograms, so a mere 10 grams more than the Caithness. Just again for a direct comparison. May not look like it, but they're almost identical in weight. The balance is also pretty close to the hilt. Now, I'm not an expert on Viking swords, but from what I've read, there seems to have been quite a bit of variation in weight and balance. Some were surprisingly heavy, like even up to 1.5 or 1.6 kilograms apparently, and also fairly forward weighted, and others were lighter and balanced closer to the guard. So I don't know how representative this one really is. It seems light for its type, but seems a little odd in some ways, but I can't say too much about it. I can just talk about how it performs. Now, in handling, it seems really more similar to a later medieval sword, which also makes me wonder a little bit just how close it is to the originals. In shape, yeah, no doubt, overall, definitely is. I mean, again, this can certainly deliver one hell of a cut. Thrust could still do it, but these here are really primary cutting swords. After that, I got the Gaddhjalt. This was actually a get-well gift from Albion themselves after I got hit by a car in January 2016. It totally floored me. This is actually not a sword that I would have picked up myself because I'm not a fan of the overall aesthetic, especially the pommel. I really don't particularly like this style of pommel. However, I'm very happy that I got it, not just because it's a free high quality sword, but also because it surprised me. I've come to like it a whole lot. I mean, obviously it's not just about the looks, it's also about the performance, about how it handles, how it does things, how it cuts, especially. And in that regard, this is a beast. I mean, this is probably the best cutting single-edged sword or single-handed sword I have. Although I got one that might give this a run for its money, which is a falchion from Angus Trim. But either way, so this one is a later Viking sword. And you can see this is where they started looking more like Norman swords, and it's got a substantially longer blade. In fact, this is longer than both of these, it's even longer than the Messer, and it's actually almost the same length as the longsword. So quite some reach and also tremendous cutting power. The weight, this is 1.22 kilograms or 2.69 pounds, which means that it's not much heavier than these two, but it feels heavier. So that's due to the balance and the proportions also, because you have that much blade, it's just, you feel it a little more, weighing down. The balance, let me show you here. The balance is noticeably further away from the hilt than the other two, especially if you look at how much blade there is left after that. And so this requires a bit more strength to use effectively, or body mechanics. I mean, this is not one where you just do, quick little wrist cuts. That would be, if you're strong enough, you can do that. But this is really more one for, full hip-powered cuts that get pretty devastating. I mean, I've done some abusive testing with it. I've done various cutting, and it's impressive. I mean, no doubt about it. It's very effective. So in terms of flexibility, quite flexible due to the length mainly. Also the distal taper, because it gets really, really thin towards the point. I talked about the Caithness before, how I think that the flexibility might affect the cutting, but when I think about this one here, it also flexes quite a bit, but it's not a problem for cutting. So I'm really thinking it has more to do with the balance and the overall blade shape, like the cross section and the edge geometry. But either way, this is an extremely powerful cutter, and definitely glad to have it, even though the pommel is kind of ugly. And the final sword I got is the Liechtenauer. This is another gift from my significant other. And this is from the Maestro line. All the other ones are next gen line. The Maestro line is for HEMA practice, sparring. This is completely blunt, also has the rounded tip. This one also has a distal taper. And the edges are not just 90 degrees, just blunt, but they're also rounded off, which is nice. It makes maintenance a bit easier, makes it somewhat safer. This one here weighs 1.6 kilograms or 3.5 pounds. And the balance, similar to a lot of other longswords, right there. And this one's got a cord wrap, so this is different from the other ones. This does not have leather, and the cord wrap is really well done. It's extremely tight, and this seems like it's gonna last for a very, very long time. It seems extremely tough, sturdy, feels good too, gives you plenty of grip. The handle shape is perfect, in my opinion. It fits the hands really nicely, super comfortable. And this is also my personal preferred pommel shape on a longsword, because this is the most comfortable to grip with the other hand. I just personally like to grip it further down at the pommel just for that little bit of extra leverage. You can grip it here just fine, but it just gives you just a little bit more control. And it's a simple shape overall as a longsword, but it's got these little details here. You can see those grooves there. There's just a little bit of decoration there, just very subtle, but it does something to, make it a little more interesting to look at. And the fuller also came out quite nice. So yeah, I've been using this in practice so far, mainly technique drills. For sparring, I've been using another practice sword so far, but I'm also going to eventually use this one as well. A lot of people have this one or others from the Maestro line and are very happy with it. So good choice as a practice tool. About Albion's next generation line, which all of these are from, those are not exact copies of specific finds. That's what the museum line is for. Albion has those as well. Those are copies of specific ones. These here are still based on original finds and things like grave effigies and other images, medieval illustrations and all of that. So they are historically accurate overall. They are designed to fit right in that time period along with other swords like that. But as I said, they're not precisely one specific find replicated to the detail. Well, originally I was planning on also talking about a few other Albion swords that I would consider getting in the future, but I think this video is already long enough. I don't want to drag it out even more, so I should probably do that in a separate video. At least if there is any interest, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I just recorded the entire thing a couple of times actually, with hiccups and all.